Amaka was the kind of girl who didn't talk much unless she had to. She wasn't shy, just quiet. She had deep brown eyes that didn't miss anything, and when she smiled, it was soft, like someone who didn't smile often, but when she did, you'd know it was real. Her life had never been easy. Her mother was sick back home in the village, and Amaka had become the only one sending money for food and medicine. Her younger siblings were still in school, and their father had died 2 years ago. She had come to Lagos hoping for something, anything, that would lift her out of the hole she was sinking in. So when she got the job as a personal assistant to one of the most famous pastors in the city, it felt like an answer to prayer. Or so she thought. The first time Amaka walked into the large white gates of Streams of Glory International Church, her heart beat fast. The church building stood like a castle, shiny floors, gold-colored chairs, huge speakers. She had never seen anything like it. People outside the gates were taking selfies beside the church walls like it was a tourist spot. Inside, a woman rushed up to her and smiled. "You must be the new secretary," the woman said, holding a tablet. "Pastor has been waiting for you. Come with me." Amaka nodded quietly and followed her through the hallway. Every step she took made her shoes sound loud on the tiled floor. Her pink shirt was neatly ironed and her blue skirt reached her knees. She had plaited her hair the day before and packed it into a clean bun. She couldn't afford to look unkempt. Not on her first day. They stopped in front of a tall wooden door. The woman knocked gently. "Come in," a deep voice said from inside. The door opened slowly, and Amaka stepped into the office. It smelled like sweet cologne and expensive air freshener. A large desk sat in the middle of the room with a soft-looking chair behind it. A man in a white suit sat there, his eyes fixed on a document. He looked up. "You must be Amaka," Pastor John said with a wide smile. His voice was smooth like a radio host, and his eyes sparkled like someone used to being admired. "Yes, sir," Amaka said softly, standing with her hands clasped in front of her. "Come, come," he said, rising from his seat. "Welcome to the team. I've heard good things about you." She walked forward and shook his hand. It was warm, firm, and held on for 1 second longer than necessary. "Thank you, sir." "Sit down," he said, pointing to the chair across from him. "Let's talk." Amaka sat, trying to hide the nervous feeling building in her stomach. "This job," Pastor John began, "is not just any job. Working close to a man of God is like being part of something special. Here, we are like family. We don't gossip. We don't backbite. We protect each other." "Yes, sir." Amaka nodded. "I believe in loyalty. If you have any problem, you come to me directly. No outsiders. Do you understand?" "Yes, sir, I understand." "Good. Because I don't just let anyone close to me. I've prayed about you. God told me you are trustworthy." Amaka forced a smile. "Thank you, sir." Pastor John leaned back in his chair. "I hope you're ready. This job will take a lot from you. Long hours, events. Sometimes you'll stay late. You're okay with that?" "Yes, sir." He nodded, still smiling. "I like you already. You look focused. And I can see you're well brought up." "Thank you, sir." As she stood to leave, Pastor John's eyes followed her with a kind of attention she wasn't used to. The moment she closed the door behind her, she exhaled deeply and placed a hand on her chest. Something about his smile felt wrong, too perfect, too smooth. Like someone who had spent years practicing it in front of a mirror. The days that followed moved quickly. Amaka got to work before sunrise and left when the stars were out. She arranged meetings, organized prayer schedules, replied to emails, and managed everything on the pastor's calendar. He was always in high demand. People from all over the country sent messages asking for prayer, deliverance, or a personal meeting. "Pastor, my child is sick. Pastor, my husband left me, nay. Pastor, I need a miracle." He had the kind of fame that made people tremble when they spoke to him. And to the public, he was a hero, a father, a spiritual shield. But Amaka saw another side. He would glance at her during meetings and let his eyes linger longer than normal. He would comment on her clothes, her body, her smile. It was never direct, never something she could complain about, just words with too much weight. "You look beautiful today," he said one morning, sipping from a gold cup. "That color suits your skin." "Thank you, sir," she said, pretending not to notice his eyes moving over her body. "You know," he added, "God really took his time creating you." Amaka gave a small laugh. The kind you give when you don't want to offend someone, but you want them to stop. That evening, just as she was packing her bag to leave, his voice called from the office. "Amaka, come in for a minute." She turned slowly and walked into the room. "Sit," he said, gesturing to the same seat as before. Her bag remained clutched in her hands. "I want to talk to you," he said, leaning forward. "You've been doing well, very well. You're smart. You're organized. You handle things better than my last assistant." "Thank you, sir." "But that's not all," he said, staring directly at her. "You're different. There's something about you that pulls people in." She shifted in her seat. "You're not just hard-working," he continued. "You're beautiful. Do people tell you that often?" Amaka looked down. "I don't really think about that, sir. I just try to do my work." Pastor John smiled. "You should know your worth. A woman like you deserves to be admired." "I should go and finish the reports, sir," she said quickly, standing up. "Wait, Amaka. Don't be shy. We're just talking." "I understand, sir. I'll bring the documents to your desk tomorrow morning." Before he could say more, she opened the door and walked out. Outside, her breath shook. She held the railing of the staircase and stared at the marble tiles below. Her body felt heavy, her chest tight. This was not what she signed up for. She needed this job, yes, but not like this. Still, she couldn't afford to leave. That night, her phone buzzed as she lay on her bed, staring at the ceiling. It was a text message from a strange number. "God is watching you. Change your ways before it's too late." She sat up, confused. Who sent that? She wasn't sure if it was for her or for someone else. The next morning, Pastor John was already in his office when she arrived. "Good morning, sir," she said. "Good morning, my dear," he replied, without looking up. Later that afternoon, she noticed him staring at his phone for a long time, then putting it down with a small, strange smile. She didn't ask questions, but she had a feeling the text message had reached the right person. Each day grew more uncomfortable. He would ask her to stay after hours for made-up meetings. He would ask about her personal life, whether she had a boyfriend, who she lived with, if she had ever been lonely. Amaka began to feel like a mouse trapped in a golden cage, and still, no one suspected a thing. To the world, Pastor John was perfect, always preaching about holiness, always shouting, "Touch not my anointed," always blaming women for temptation, but behind those church walls, his secrets were growing, and so were hers. Amaka had never told anyone, not even her mother. She was HIV positive. A part of her still hated herself for it. She had been infected after trusting someone years ago. She had tried to forget, moved to another city, changed her life. And now here she was again, working under another man with a sweet voice and dark heart. But this time she wasn't that scared little girl. This time she had nothing left to lose. And if Pastor John thought she would keep quiet forever, he was wrong. From the outside, everything looked perfect. Streams of Glory International Church was still full every Sunday. The ushers still smiled like everything was fine. The choir still sang like angels. And Pastor John still walked on stage like a king returning from war. People shouted, "Man of God!" and rushed to touch his suit. But behind his big office door, things were different. Amaka was no longer smiling the way she used to. She had learned how to wear a straight face, one that didn't show what she was feeling. She still did her work well. She still arrived early and left late. But something inside her had gone cold. Pastor John noticed it too. "You don't laugh like you used to," he said one evening as she brought some files to his desk. "I'm just tired, sir," she said, keeping her eyes on the folder. "You need to relax," he said with that smooth voice of his. "Let me take you out this weekend. You deserve a break." "I'm fine, sir." "Don't be shy," he said, chuckling. "You and I are close now. I can take care of you. No need to stress yourself. This life is too short for suffering." "I really just want to focus on my work," Amaka replied, already turning to leave. Pastor John leaned back in his chair and watched her walk away. He didn't like being told no, not by anyone, not even by her. The next day, Amaka came to the office and found her name missing from the weekly rota. She wasn't scheduled for any meetings. She wasn't invited to the morning prayer with the staff. When she asked the church administrator, he looked confused. "Pastor John didn't mention anything?" he asked. "No," she said. He shrugged. "He told me you were on special assignment. Maybe speak to him directly." That afternoon, she entered the office to ask. "Good afternoon, sir," she said quietly. Pastor John didn't look up from his laptop. "Afternoon. I noticed I wasn't on the schedule this week." He looked up slowly. "Yes, I thought you needed a little time. You've been distant lately." "I didn't say I needed time off, sir. I want to work." Pastor John stood up and walked around the table to her side. "Amaka, what is it? Talk to me. We're family here." She stepped back a little. "There's nothing wrong, sir." He placed his hand gently on her shoulder. "You don't have to be scared. I'm not angry with you. I just feel like we're not as close as before. I miss the way you used to smile when you came in." She nodded, trying to stay calm. He moved his hand from her shoulder to her back. "You know I care about you, right?" "I know, sir." "You're special," he said softly. "God showed me that. I've never met someone like you. So strong. So beautiful." Amaka's heart was beating fast now. She took a step away. "I'll return to my desk now," she said quickly. But Pastor John blocked her path. "Why are you always running away from me?" he asked. "Did I offend you?" "No, sir," she said, her voice steady but her eyes cold. "Then don't treat me like a stranger. I just want to do my work, sir." He stared at her for a long second, then sighed and stepped aside. "Go," he said quietly. Amaka walked out fast, her hands shaking as she closed the door behind her. That night, she didn't eat. She sat on her bed in the small apartment she shared with two other girls and stared at the wall. Her roommates were in the other room watching a movie, laughing. But inside Amaka, nothing was funny. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was another message from that unknown number. "You're doing well. Don't stop." She didn't know who was sending the messages, but she didn't care. All she knew was that something had shifted, and she wasn't afraid anymore. The next few weeks passed slowly. Pastor John started using his power in small, dangerous ways. He removed her from important meetings. He gave some of her tasks to another assistant. He began correcting her in front of other staff, even when she hadn't done anything wrong. "Next time, don't mix up my files," he snapped one morning during a planning session. "You need to be more organized." Amaka looked up. "I didn't touch that file, sir. You gave it to Sister Grace." "Are you saying I'm lying?" he asked, raising his voice. "No, sir. I'm just saying I wasn't the one who handled it." He turned to the rest of the staff. "You all see why loyalty is important. Some people can't be trusted with small things." Amaka didn't say another word. She just nodded and looked down at her notes. Later that day, Grace found her by the stairs and whispered, "Why is he turning against you?" Amaka shrugged. "I guess I'm not holy enough." Grace frowned. "But you used to be his favorite. What happened?" Amaka smiled faintly. Maybe he found another favorite. At night, she began to record her thoughts on her phone. She would sit in the dark and speak in a low voice. Day 23. "He tried to touch me again today. I said no. I think he's punishing me now, but I won't break. I won't run." She saved every voice note in a hidden folder and backed them up to an online drive, just in case. She also began taking pictures of documents, private letters, secret emails, and messages from female church members who had strange things to say. Some of them were just as scared as she had once been. But now, she was no longer afraid. One evening, after midweek service, Pastor John called her again. "Come to my office. We need to talk." She knew what was coming, but she walked in with her head high. He was sitting with his suit jacket off, a glass of red juice on the table beside him. "Close the door," he said. She closed it quietly. "Sit down." She sat. "Why are you behaving like a stranger?" he asked, staring at her hard. "I'm not," she replied. "You used to listen to me. Now you question everything. You used to laugh. Now your face is stiff. Why?" She didn't answer. "Do you think I don't see what you're doing?" he asked. "You think you're the first girl to come here and act holy? I've helped many people before you. I can still help you." "I didn't ask for help, sir," she said. He stood up slowly. "You think I need your permission? You think you can make me look foolish? Who are you, Amaka?" "I'm your secretary, sir," she said, standing too. "And I think we're done here." He moved close to her, close enough to smell his breath. "You don't know who you're dealing with." "I think I do," she said. Her voice was calm, but her hands were tight. They stared at each other for a few seconds. Then she turned, opened the door, and walked out. As she reached the bottom of the stairs, her phone buzzed again. This time the message was different. "He will fall. Just wait." That night she looked at her reflection in the mirror for a long time. She was not the same girl who had walked into the church office weeks ago. That girl had been scared. But this one was ready. Ready for whatever came next. The office was too quiet that evening. Amaka could hear the ticking sound of the wall clock behind her desk. 1, 2, 3, slow and steady. Almost like it was counting down to something. Everyone else had gone home. The lights in the hallway were off. The only light still on was coming from Pastor John's office. She could see it glowing through the space under his door. She didn't want to go in there, not again, but the message had been clear. "Come and see me before you leave." She sat at her desk for a few minutes, hoping he'd change his mind and tell her not to bother. But no message came. Just that single glowing light and the feeling that something big was about to happen. She stood up, fixed her blouse, and walked slowly toward the office door. Her shoes made soft clicks against the floor. She paused at the door, took a deep breath, and knocked gently. "Come in," his voice said, calm and slow. She pushed the door open. The room smelled of cologne again, strong and sweet. Pastor John was sitting behind his desk, but he looked different this time. His suit jacket was off, his tie loose, and the top 2 buttons of his shirt were open. His phone was on the table, screen face down. A glass of red juice sat beside it. "You're late," he said, his eyes watching her carefully. "I finished locking up the hall," she said, her voice even. He nodded slowly. "Close the door." She did. "Come sit down." She walked to the chair and sat across from him, just like she had many times before. He didn't speak at first. He just looked at her. Then finally, he leaned forward. "You've been here for a while now," he said. "You've seen how things work. You've watched how I handle people, how I lead the church." Amaka nodded but said nothing. "I've trusted you," he continued. "I brought you close. Closer than I bring most people." "I know, sir." "But you've been distant lately," he said. "Like you're hiding something." She kept her eyes on his desk. "Look at me," he said quietly. She looked up. "You think I don't see it?" he asked. "You think I don't know when someone is pretending?" "I'm not pretending, sir," she said. "Then why do I feel like you've already judged me?" he asked, raising one eyebrow. "Like you've made up your mind about me without even knowing the full story." She opened her mouth, then closed it again. "Let me tell you something, Amaka," he said, standing up slowly. "Ministry is hard. People expect too much from us. They think pastors are angels, but we are still men, flesh and blood, weak sometimes." He walked around the desk and stood close to her. "I never forced anything on you," he said. "Never." Her jaw tightened, but she didn't move. "I like you," he said softly. "From the beginning, I liked you. You're smart, beautiful, different from the others. I saw it from day one." She swallowed hard. "You could have had anything you wanted." "Anything," he said. "I would have taken care of you. You wouldn't be struggling the way you are." "I didn't come here for that," Amaka said quietly. He chuckled and stepped even closer. "Then why did you come here?" "To work," she replied. He reached out and brushed her cheek with his fingers. "You don't need to pretend. I know you feel it too." The connection. Amaka stood up quickly. "Please, I want to leave now." "Why?" he asked, blocking her path. "Why are you always running from me? I don't want to hurt you. I just want us to be closer." "You don't have the right," she said sharply. "I work for you. I trusted you." Pastor John's face changed. The soft smile disappeared. He stepped back and folded his arms. "You think you're better than everyone, don't you?" he said, his voice cold now. "You walk around with your nose in the air like you're untouchable. Let me tell you something, Amaka. Girls like you come and go." "Then let me go," she said, turning toward the door. "You think anyone will believe you?" he said, raising his voice. "You think anyone will believe a secretary over their pastor?" She stopped. Her hand rested on the doorknob. "You're not the first girl to try this nonsense," he continued, "and you won't be the last." She turned to face him, her eyes steady now. "Then do what you want," she said, "but I won't be quiet forever." The silence between them was thick. He stepped forward again, then paused. "You'll regret this," he said. Amaka opened the door and walked out without another word. But something inside her had broken open, and now there was no going back. The next day, she showed up at the office just like normal. She wore a calm face. She answered phone calls, typed out memos, scheduled meetings. Pastor John acted like nothing had happened. "Good morning," he said when she walked in. "Morning, sir," she replied. He smiled, charming as ever. "Busy, day ahead. We're meeting with the partners from South Africa at noon." "Yes, sir." He carried on with his day like a man with a clean heart. But Amaka knew better now. She had seen the real him, and this time, she would not run. That weekend, there was a special deliverance service. Hundreds of people came from far away. Some came on buses, some walked. The church was packed. People screamed during prayers. The choir sang with fire. Pastor John shouted and waved his hand over the crowd, casting out demons. "Fire of the Holy Ghost!" he screamed. People fell to the floor, crying and shaking. Amaka stood by the side of the stage, watching him perform, like always. The same man who had blocked her from leaving his office just days ago. Later that night, after the crowd was gone and the church was quiet again, she stood in front of the bathroom mirror. Her hand rested on the sink. She stared at her own reflection, and for the first time, she didn't see weakness. She saw fire. The moment it happened, she didn't cry. She didn't scream. She didn't fight. He had finally crossed a line. He waited until late, told her there were documents to review, said it would only take a few minutes. She walked into the office with her bag still on her shoulder, but the door locked behind her. "No interruptions tonight," he said with a smile. And she knew. She knew what he had planned. He moved close, touched her arm, told her to relax, said this was meant to be. She didn't fight him. She didn't push him away. She just let it happen. Because in her mind, it had already happened long before now. The next morning, she wore her favorite white blouse and black skirt. She tied her scarf neatly and carried her bag with steady hands. She walked into the office, opened her drawer, and pulled out her small notebook. She wrote in it calmly, "It is done." When she saw Pastor John later that day, he gave her a long, knowing smile. "Good girl," he whispered. "You're part of the family now." She smiled back, but in her eyes, there was no warmth, only silence. 3 days later, his phone buzzed at midnight. Another message. This time, it was not just sin. It was a mistake, a very big one. He stared at the screen for a long time. Then he sat up in bed, his chest tight. He went to the bathroom, splashed water on his face, looked into the mirror, and for the first time, the confident man of God didn't like what he saw. Amaka traveled to the village the next week. Her mother was lying on the small bamboo bed in their one-room house. Her face was pale, her breathing soft. Amaka knelt beside her and held her hand. "Mama," she whispered, "I came to see you." Her mother opened her eyes slowly and smiled. "You look tired," she said. "I'm okay." "You don't look okay." Amaka shook her head. I had to do something, Mama." "Did you do it?" "Yes." "Then stop crying inside." Amaka smiled sadly. "I want us to be free," she said. "We will," her mother replied. "One day we will." Amaka stood up and walked outside. The wind was gentle. The trees danced slowly. She looked at the sky, and for the first time in a long time, she breathed freely. The mask was off, and the real story was just beginning. Pastor John stood in front of the mirror in his bathroom, staring at himself. His eyes were red. His face looked pale, like someone who hadn't slept in days. He splashed more water on his face, but it didn't help. Something wasn't right. His hands were shaking. His chest felt heavy. He touched his forehead. Hot. Too hot. He walked back into the bedroom and sat on the bed. His wife, Angela, was fast asleep beside him. She didn't even move. She had been ignoring him lately, and he didn't have the strength to fight. He picked up his phone and checked his messages. There it was again. A message from the same strange number. The sickness has entered. The secret is no longer safe. Pastor John's heart began to race. His hand dropped the phone. He stood up and walked back and forth in the room, breathing fast. He had been feeling tired for days now. Sometimes he couldn't finish his sermons without sitting down. He had lost weight too, even though he was eating well. His suits no longer fit the same way. His skin looked dry and his lips were cracking. Every morning he woke up drenched in the sweat. But he didn't want to believe it. He didn't want to ask the one question that had been sitting in his mind for days. Not yet. He wasn't ready for the answer. Back at the office, Amaka sat quietly behind her desk. She was typing slowly, checking each letter, each word, like she had all the time in the world. The other workers came in and out, talking, laughing, moving around. But Amaka said little. She just kept doing her work. Grace, the assistant who sat closest to her, leaned over and whispered, "He's not himself lately." Amaka didn't turn. "What do you mean?" "He looks tired. Did you see how he almost fell on stage on Sunday?" Amaka nodded. "Maybe he's sick." Grace lowered her voice. "Or maybe something is disturbing him. Spiritual attack, maybe." Amaka finally turned and looked at her. "Spiritual attack?" Grace nodded quickly. "Somebody is fighting him in the spirit. That's what I think." Amaka gave a small smile. Maybe. But inside her she knew. It wasn't a spirit. It was the truth. And the truth had started to eat him from the inside. During that Sunday service, people began to notice the difference. Pastor John's voice didn't sound strong anymore. He cleared his throat again and again. He kept wiping his face with a white towel, even though the AC was blowing. Halfway through the sermon, he paused. He looked down at his Bible, then back at the crowd. His hand was shaking. He tried to continue preaching, but the words wouldn't come out smoothly. People in the front row whispered to each other. One woman looked at her friend and mouthed the words, "Is he okay?" He finally stepped back and said, "Let us pray." He couldn't even finish the closing prayer. He waved at the assistant pastor to take over and slowly walked off the stage. Angela rushed to meet him backstage. "John, what is wrong?" He didn't answer. "Talk to me," she said again, gripping his arm. "I'm fine," he whispered. "Just tired." But he was not fine. He was falling apart. On Monday morning, Amaka arrived early as usual. She found an envelope sitting on her desk. Her name was written in bold red ink. She opened it carefully. Inside, there was a single piece of paper with just 5 words. "This house will soon burn." She stared at it for a long time. Was it a warning? Or a promise? She folded the paper and slipped it into her bag. Later that afternoon, she walked past Pastor John's office and saw him sitting alone, looking down at a test result. His eyes were empty. His hands were frozen on the paper. She knocked softly. He looked up. His face was pale. His lips looked dry and gray. "Yes?" "I brought your meeting notes, sir," she said. He didn't speak, just nodded slowly. She placed the papers on his table and turned to leave. Just before she stepped out, he spoke. "Amaka." She stopped but didn't turn. "Did you ever feel sick around me?" She stood still for a second, then answered, "No, sir," and walked out. Her voice was calm, but her heart was racing. She knew what he had just read, and she knew his world was beginning to shake. By Wednesday, the church elders had started asking questions. They called for a private meeting. One of them, Elder Martins, stepped into the office and spoke softly to Amaka. "Please tell Pastor John we need to see him. It's urgent." She nodded and picked up the phone on her desk. Pastor John answered after a long pause. "The elders want to see you, sir," she said. "I'll come soon," he replied, his voice barely a whisper. He didn't come out for another hour. When he finally did, he wore dark glasses, even though it wasn't sunny. He walked slowly, like a man, with a weight on his back. He didn't speak to anyone as he passed, not even the staff who greeted him. The meeting lasted for almost 2 hours. When he came out, his wife was waiting by the door. He walked straight past her. "John!" she called. He didn't answer. She followed him into his office and slammed the door behind her. "You told me it was stress," Angela shouted. "You told me you just needed rest." "I didn't know," Pastor John said, his voice tired. "You didn't know? You didn't know you were dying? Keep your voice down." "No, I will not keep my voice down. You are my husband, John. We sleep in the same bed. You didn't even tell me." "I just got the results," he said. I didn't want to believe it. Angela stared at him, her mouth open in shock. "So it's true? You're HIV positive?" He looked away. Angela stepped back, her hands shaking. "John, who did this to you?" she asked. "Who?" "I don't know." "Don't lie to me," she said, her voice sharp. "Who have you been sleeping with? Who brought this into our home?" "I said I don't know." Angela turned away, breathing fast. "You disgust me," she said. "You're not a man of God. You're a disgrace." "Angela, please, don't touch me," she screamed. "Don't ever touch me again." She stormed out of the office and slammed the door behind her. Amaka, who had heard everything from her desk, quietly closed her notebook and picked up her bag. She didn't need to be here anymore. The fire had started, and it was spreading fast. That evening, Amaka got a message on her phone. This time it wasn't from the strange number. It was from a journalist. The message said, "Are you ready to talk?" She stared at the message for a while, then typed, "Let's meet. Tomorrow, Ducey." She deleted the message thread and turned off her phone. Her fingers were steady. Her heart was calm. She wasn't scared anymore. She was done playing nice. By the end of the week, things got worse. Members started leaving the church. Some had heard rumors. Some had noticed Pastor John's weight loss and strange behavior. Whispers filled the church halls. "Something is wrong with Pastor. He hasn't preached in days." His wife moved out. "What's happening?" Pastor John canceled 2 Sunday services in a row. He said he was taking time to pray and fast. But no one believed him anymore. Then on Monday morning, a brown envelope arrived at the church gate. It was addressed to the Board of Elders. Inside were photos, pictures of Pastor John in his office, pictures of messages from female members, pictures of hotel bookings, voice notes, and one sentence at the bottom, "You covered his sins for too long. Now, cover his shame." The elders gathered again. This time their faces were hard. They didn't invite him to the meeting. They decided without him. The next day, a letter was posted on the church bulletin board. "Pastor John is taking a personal break for health reasons. Assistant Pastor Emmanuel will lead until further notice." Nobody clapped. Nobody said amen. The crowd just stared. And slowly, quietly, people started leaving the church one by one. That night in his house, Pastor John lay on his bed, alone. His phone buzzed again. He picked it up with a weak hand. Another message. "This is just the beginning." He dropped the phone on the floor and closed his eyes. The fire was now everywhere. And it had reached him too. The hospital room was quiet. Too quiet. Pastor John lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling. His body was weak. His face had lost color. The drip beside him made a slow beeping sound that echoed in the silence. He could still hear the choir singing in his dreams. He could still see the lights, the crowd, the camera flashes. But all that was gone now. The stage was empty. His name was no longer on the church banner. The gate man had stopped calling him Daddy. Even the nurses at the hospital treated him like just another patient. He turned his head slowly and looked at the chair beside the bed. Angela wasn't there. She hadn't come since the day she screamed and left the office. Not even a text. Not even one word. The door opened. One of the junior pastors walked in holding a small Bible and a food flask. "Good morning, sir," the young man said quietly. Pastor John didn't answer. "I brought you some rice and stew," the man said again, placing the flask on the table. Pastor John turned his head to the wall. The young man paused, then said, "I'm praying for you, sir." Still no reply. He picked up the Bible and opened it. "Let me read Psalm 51. "No," Pastor John whispered. The young man stopped. "Sir." "I said no," Pastor John repeated louder this time. The young man slowly closed the Bible and left without saying another word. The door closed again. The silence returned. Far away, in a small cafe behind a petrol station, Amaka sat with a man in a red shirt. He looked ordinary, but he wasn't. He was a reporter. His phone was on the table, the recorder blinking red. "Say that again," he said. Amaka leaned forward. Her voice was steady. "I said, he forced himself on me, but I let him think he won." The man blinked, clearly surprised by her calm tone. "You do know what that means?" he asked. She nodded. "Yes." "You're telling me you stopped taking your medication?" "Yes." "And you knew what you were doing?" She didn't answer. She just looked at him. He sat back slowly. "Why?" Amaka looked down at her hands. They were folded neatly in front of her. Her nails were clean. Her face was calm. "Because he destroyed me," she said quietly. "He destroyed my trust, my hope, my peace." "And this was your way of fighting back?" "It was the only way," she said. The reporter looked at his phone again, then looked at her. "You do realize that if this comes out, you're not just a victim anymore?" Amaka nodded. "I'm not a victim. I'm not a hero either. I'm just tired." He closed the recorder and put his phone in his pocket. "I'll send you a copy before it goes live." She nodded. "Be ready," he said, "because the world won't understand." She gave a sad smile. They never do. He stood up and left the cafe. Amaka stayed seated for a while, sipping her drink slowly. Her heart was not beating fast. She wasn't nervous. She wasn't scared. She was just quiet. The storm had passed, but the air still smelled of smoke. The story dropped 3 days later. It hit social media first, then moved to the news. Church secretary speaks, how Pastor John took advantage of me and paid the price. The article included quotes, screenshots, voice recordings, and photos. It spread like wildfire. People who had once shouted, "Daddy," now whispered, "Is it true?" Members sent angry messages to the church WhatsApp group. Others dropped long posts online about how God is the only true judge. The elders tried to control it, but it was too late. Too many people had seen it. Too many people had shared it. Pastor John's name was now a punchline in jokes, memes, tweets, radio gossip. A man who once commanded full stadiums now sat in a hospital room where nobody came. Angela came to see him 2 days later. She walked in quietly, stood by the door, and didn't move. Pastor John turned his head and saw her. She looked tired. She was holding a white envelope. "I came to give you this," she said. He didn't speak. She placed the envelope on the table. "It's the divorce papers." Still, he said nothing. She sighed. You didn't just break your body, John. You broke everything. The trust, the marriage, the calling. He turned his face to the wall again. Angela looked at him for a long time. I hope you find peace, she said. Then she walked out of the room. That evening, Amaka was walking home from the market. She had just bought foodstuffs, Gary, oil, pepper. She walked slowly, carrying her nylon bags. Her head was full, but her heart was still. A small boy ran past her with a newspaper in hand. The headline on the front page made her stop. Police investigating former pastor over rape allegations. Amaka stood still. The words were big, clear, bold. She knew it was coming. She had waited for it. She turned and continued walking. When she got home, she boiled water for tea and sat by the window. Her roommates were not home. The room was quiet. The breeze was cool. She sipped her tea and looked outside. The sun was going down. She smiled to herself. Maybe now she could breathe. But she didn't know that the police were already watching. They had gotten a tip, not just about Pastor John, but about her. The reporter had sent the audio to the station. It had been added to the file. They had listened to her voice again and again. I stopped taking my medication. I let him think he won. They replayed it, paused it, wrote it down, then signed the warrant. 2 days later, a knock came on her door. It was early morning. She had just brushed her teeth and was boiling yam in the small pot. Who is it? She asked. Police. She froze. Open the door, the voice said again. She opened it slowly. 3 officers stood outside. Are you Miss Amaka Okoye? Yes. You are under arrest for knowingly infecting someone with HIV. She didn't move. She didn't cry. She just stepped back and said, Okay. They handcuffed her gently. Her neighbors came out, whispering, What did she do? Is it about the pastor? She looked too quiet. As they led her away, Amaka looked up at the sky. It was cloudy. No sun, no wind, just gray. She didn't scream. She didn't beg. She had told her story. She had spoken her truth. And now, whatever came next was out of her hands. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please leave a like and subscribe. Here's another interesting story to watch. Click to watch now.